everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
That's right. My name is Mike Piwowarski, coming to you live from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most, from the co-host with the most, here on The Rundown. 2A views, conservative news, and Craig, how is your Throat Punch Thursday going?
You know, my Throat Punch Thursday is actually going pretty well. Just, excuse me, got back from sparring in my Krav Maga class and literally punched somebody in the throat.
Nice. Very nice. Good for you. Good for you. Was this a mutual throat punch exchange, or just you got to give one?
Well, he attempted to punch me in the throat, but he was unsuccessful.
Gotcha. Very good. Congratulations, sir. There you go. That's the best kind of throat punch. So. Very good. Very good. So
it was very good. Had a good time. Have a good time. You know, it's funny. I didn't. The fun part about it is, first of all, it's a great workout, great group of folks over there at King Krav Maga. But you know, you realize as you get older, you realize that you know, there's a reason why the reason why youth is wasted on the young, and that's because that stuff is tiring.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Very, very much so. Yeah. Yeah. And the remember when you didn't have to stretch before any exercise, and now you spend more time stretching than you do exercising?
Oh yeah. Oh no. Most definitely. Most definitely. And you get you as you get older, you also get wiser. You realize that, okay, well, I'll have my ibuprofen and my ice waiting for me as soon as I return.
Yeah.
You learn this thing called pacing yourself. That's another thing you learn.
Yeah. I like when you're doing the stretches and you know it's not going to work out. You take some of the ibuprofen before the exercise.
Yeah.
Like let's do this. I feel like I'll perform better today if I don't feel this.
I always joke with some of the youngsters. I'm always like, you know, when I was your age, I would float when I ran. Now it's more of a lumber.
Yeah, yeah. It's like me trying to keep from falling.
Yeah. Well, I also realize, like, I do more like kind of the lineman shuffle. You know how linemen actually are like walking, but actually make it look like they're running.
Right. Yes.
That's my warm up run.
You know, mine is, you know how when you're walking and you stumble, and there's two things you can do when you stumble, right? You can either look back at what you stumbled on, like, hey, where'd that come from? And there's nothing there, or you break into that little jog after you stumble, you know, and it's really like it's just you leaning forward, but you're running to keep from falling.
Yes,
it's like that. It's like that the whole time. That's my run. It's moving forward just quick enough to keep from falling.
There you go. Just just getting a little exercise. Getting a little exercise.
Yep. There you go. Yep.
Yeah, the hardest part about Krav Maga, to be quite honest, is getting up off the ground.
Oh, that's a lot. People don't understand that. That's a lot different than it used to be. I look at, you know, things like, I'm at the level now, you tell me, where if I see a quarter on the ground, it's staying there.
It's like you drop something and you're like, okay, how can I live without that?
Yeah, it's got to be a 50-cent piece now. I've gone to that point. Used to be pennies, you know, and stuff like that, and nickels. Now if it's not a big piece of silver, it's not getting picked up.
My granddaughter always wants me to come and sit and play in her room with her. She wants me to sit crisscross applesauce. And I said, I can barely sit whole apples, let alone applesauce.
I can barely do the bushel over here. Yeah,
I can barely do sit on a bushel of apples, let alone applesauce.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. All right, Mike. Well, before we get into the news today, let's go ahead and give a quick shout out to our sponsors.
Yep, let's say hi to Hitman Industries. That's hitmanindustries.net. If you got yourself an AR in the past 5 years, odds are you got barrels from them and you don't even know it. Now you can buy from them factory direct for your next AR build or rebarrel your current AR platform. That's hitmanindustries.net. California Republican Assembly fighting the good fight behind enemy lines. Now you could take part in California's future today. Check out the California 6th congressional race when you get the chance. It's good viewing. Take a look. If you want the best in tactical concealed holsters on the market, get on over to Hog Holsters. That's HAWG holsters.com. Use discount code The Rundown, all one word, all caps, no spaces. And then if you want tactical gear, if you're going in the field, you're going indoors, you're going outdoors, hunting, fishing, camping, whatever it is, you can get everything but the gun at uscombatgear.com.
Also, I want to remind you folks, special event coming up with the California Republican Assembly, a formal reception featuring Dr. Sebastian Gorka. This is going to be Friday, November 3rd in Costa Mesa, California, down there in Southern California. If you are in town, you are going to want to be there because it is going to be the place to be. And then on the following day, the California Republican Assembly is going to have their presidential endorsing convention. You're going to want to be there. All of the representatives from all of the campaigns are going to be there. It's going to be a fun event. You're going to want to check it out. That's also going to be, once again, there in Costa Mesa. To find out more information about both, go to cragop.org. That's cragop.org. All right, well, let's go ahead, Mike, and let's get into today's news stories. Interesting things going on. And our first story, as I'm sure you saw, has to do with our Ivy League universities. And mind you, Harvard is not the only university that's probably dealing with this. It's just probably the most visible of the Ivy League universities that are dealing with this sort of problem. And it has to do with all of the stuff that's been coming out with, obviously the attacks, the atrocities that have been conducted by Hamas there in Israel. Well, a Harvard student group has issued anti-Israeli statements, and let's just say that there's a lot of backlash, not just at these student groups, but at the universities, where university presidents at these universities, where these student groups are coming out, and they are not saying a word. They are keeping their mouths shut. And here's a story, and this was interesting because, now mind you, this right here, Mike, this is MSNBC reporting on this. So they've jumped the shark if MSNBC is calling attention to it.
The president of Harvard, meanwhile, is speaking out days after a statement released by Harvard student groups on the Israel-Hamas war was widely condemned. The Ivy League University faced national backlash after the Harvard Undergraduate Palestine Solidarity Committee published a statement on Saturday blaming Israel for the deadly Hamas attack that targeted civilians. The letter was co-signed by 33 other student organizations. The statement was criticized by school alumni, including lawmakers from both sides of the aisle. Lawrence Summers, a Democrat and former Harvard president, said he was sickened by the statement. Republican Senator Ted Cruz, a Harvard Law School alumnus, called the school's silence, quote, utterly indefensible. Yesterday, Harvard's president, Claudine Gay, finally broke her silence on the controversy, writing in part, quote, I condemn the terrorist atrocities perpetrated by Hamas. Such inhumanity is abhorrent, whatever one's individual views of the origins of long-standing conflicts in the region, adding, while our students have the right to speak for themselves, no student group, not even 30 student groups, speaks for Harvard University or its leadership. Mike Barnicle joins us at the table. Mike, a statement from the president finally a couple of days later, but not really a condemnation of the statement put out by those student groups. A Jewish student, a doctoral student in Jewish history at Harvard, has an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, just one excerpt, quote, how can we share dormitories, classrooms, and ideas with students who would make excuses or even celebrate if we and our families were hacked to death by a Hamas terrorist tomorrow? So that gives you an idea of the climate on campus. If you're a Jewish student, how you must be feeling right now, a Jewish student at several universities where we've seen some of this stuff. For universities, Mike, that put out statements about every little wrong they believe that they see in the world, to not come out strongly against this stuff. I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but it's pretty shocking.
These are troubling times that we're all living through, Willie. And it's not just university campuses. It's not just Harvard University. It's in the halls of Congress. It's in various state houses throughout the country. And it's on street corners where people are talking about what happened this past weekend. There is a huge difference between the definition of militant and terrorist. A huge difference. And the idea that we live in a culture where there seems to be some confusion between militancy and terrorism, this was pure terrorism. Yesterday, we saw
Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I turned my mic down. What's interesting is, once again, that's MSNBC, and for them to be as matter of fact, and I'll tell you, the rest of that report, it went on for about another 3 or 4 minutes, but even they're like, look, there's no questioning here. This was in fact terrorism, and anyone who capitulates, tries to explain or give a rationale for it, is just plain wrong. And anyway, it's just it is nice to see that even MSNBC can at least call evil when faced with it.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job of it, I thought. They weren't stomping on the table or waving the flag, but they did a pretty good job of bringing the terrorism aspect of it rather than a military freedom fighter kind of situation, which is what we're hearing out of much of the liberal media, or excuse me, the Palestine loving media. Craig, and I thought the university there, Harvard, made a good statement. They MSNBC reporter there said that it wasn't quite a condemnation, but I'm pretty sure it was. He said, listen, these students don't speak for us. I don't care if it's one student or 30 students groups. They don't speak for us. And that's not this university's view. So I thought it was a pretty good piece.
Well, I think they did a condemnation of what happened in Israel, but I think they should have made it clear that I think they didn't. They wanted the students to. They should have said to the students, "I get it. You have a right to say what you want to say, no matter how stupid, ignorant it is. And if you truly feel this way, you don't represent the values of this university. If you are going to suborn and support evil, and
remember though, you're talking about Harvard, right? And the Ivy League elites, right, is what they want to put out. So they say more between the lines, than they do on the paper. So
well,
I think
I'll put it to you this way: the problem is that they have two different. The war of intersectionality is now at play here, because you've now got those who are of Jewish descent versus those who are of Muslim, who are basically you have Muslim versus Jews, both of which are part of part of the liberal constituency, at least one in part. And they don't want to offend anybody is what the problem is. If it was like with BLM, look, they didn't waste a heartbeat or a second. They went after people and students who may have stood up against things like BLM, or if it had to do with transgenderism. Once again, they'd stand up against those groups and would issue public statements without hesitation. In this case, they waited, and I think I don't know. It would be nice to see them be a little less mealy mouth.
Remember, though, according to the liberal mind, right, and the liberal mindset, Craig, the BLM attitude or the BLM style protests and violence that we saw here are different than what we're seeing overseas right now. Because remember, domestic policy and foreign policy are different. We have liberals that are supporting the BLM, right? Obviously they've supported BLM, and now you see them support the killing of children and babies. That's obviously not what they want. They don't know what they want, and they're not consistent in what they want. Even though the mantras may be the same, they're different based on whose side of the border it occurs on.
Well, and I think now some of this, I will say this, some of this I put on the mainstream media because in the very beginning, they went out of their way to sterilize and sanitize what happened. They wanted, once again, we talked about the report yesterday where the Canadian broadcast company, they refused to call them terrorists. They wanted to call them fighters or freedom fighters. They refused to just, they didn't talk about the murder of children, the fact that when they paraglided into a peace concert where there were where they killed hundreds of young people. Right?
Yeah.
They specifically targeted civilian targets, homes, synagogues, places where they were, and they killed babies, raped women, and we know this once again not because the Israelis or conservative media were putting the stuff out there. They were recording their acts of barbarism, and they were posting them to the internet. And yet the mainstream media was like, well, trying to treat it like it was just any old different, military conflict. And it's not. It's not even close. So I think initially some people took the position, a knee-jerk position, to stand behind Hamas. And then after they saw these videos, there are some of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but some of them are like, oh yeah, no, that's bad. We can't defend that.
Right. Well, remember, you've got, like I said, the Democrats that stand up and support the BLM and all that nonsense going on here in the country. And I'm not just singling them out. Name any other organization that's throw it in there, and that's fine. But you have all the politicians, the Democrat politicians that are supporting the Palestinians, right? And so they don't. They want to say, ooh, that's bad, but I can't go against my own party, because you go against your own party, that's a horrible thing. Mm-hmm. So they're staying in the silent, even if it might be the silent majority of the Democrat Party, but they're not the most vocal part. So you've got the most vocal part supporting the Palestinians there, and that's where you see this, this diametrically opposed stances on what's going on.
And by the way, let me just say this. I don't believe a lot of the left-wing propaganda about what's going on there in Israel or in the Gaza Strip, or the struggle between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But even if you do, let's say you do, I believe that you can both be a supporter of the Palestinian people and diametrically opposed and find abhorrent what Hamas did and how they went about conducting this. But you have to understand and keep it in context. If you just come out and say, I support the Palestinian people, and completely ignore the context of what Hamas just did, well, then you have to understand you're going to offend people. Because I'm sorry, you cannot ignore that context in your statement. You just cannot.
Yeah.
Because if you did, let's put it this way. You wouldn't be saying it if that context hadn't happened. You wouldn't be making a public statement to defend or support the people of Palestine. You wouldn't. So you cannot ignore. If you were to come out and say, look, what Hamas did was horrific and they need to be brought to justice, and that does not undermine my support for the people of Palestine and the desire and yada yada. If you wanted to do that, but you have to, you cannot equivocate on the evil that was done by Hamas.
Now, are you talking about the politicians or Harvard saying that?
Either. If you are a supporter of the people of Palestine, you can't ignore, once again, the context of what happened. Why are you talking about it? Because Hamas came out of the Gaza Strip and committed these atrocities, right?
Yeah.
Hamas, who, by the way, was elected to govern the Gaza Strip.
Yes.
You once again, you cannot ignore that context. So the best thing to do is either keep your mouth shut or acknowledge the context of the evil that Hamas did.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway. So anyway, moving right along. And what's funny is, and this takes me to our next thing, is like wokeism or truthism. And this is a statement that was actually put out, or actually stated, it was a comment that was made by Gayle King. Gayle King is a personality. She's on CBS, and she's talking about how she's annoyed that the term wokeism has become a pejorative. And I'll let you hear her words, and I'll comment on the other side.
It's so sad to me now that the word wokeism has now almost become weaponized. It's really missing the point about what's being taught here. I don't look at it as wokeism so much as truthism. And I think if people would take the time to really see what is happening in these classes and what's being told, nowhere are we trying to say, anybody's trying to say hate white people, ignore. It drives me crazy when I hear that, Lisa.
Wokeism is just misleading the future generations from learning about our history.
Yes.
Listen,
and it is our history.
Yeah,
everybody.
Exactly.
Part about all this, Mike, the funny part about all this is I've been through and I've gone through some of these quote unquote anti-racism trainings. And what she says they're not saying, yeah, that's exactly what they're saying. They're saying that, if you are white, then you are racist and you cannot help yourself. And I'm not being as sensitive in my words as they tend to be, but that is the words, that is how they use it. If you are a person of color and you are successful, if you have found a way to achieve the American dream in this country, well, it is because you have your proximity to whiteness. And if you don't see that, if you don't have a problem with the way this country is, then you've internalized your racism, right? You've internalized the racism. And the funny part is that the reason why it's become a pejorative is because they have acted completely and utterly idiotic in terms of how they've allowed this stuff to be. And by the way, no, it's not truth. It's not truthism. It is straight up lies. Much of it is lies and propaganda, or even the theory, once again, the critical race theory has never been anything that's been proven or challenged academically. It's all lies and falsehood, which, is pretty consistent with the new cultural Marxism.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look at the party in power, and this is what you get. We saw this, 8 years under Obama, right? We see this now again with Obama Part 2, Biden. This is what you got going on there. Let's change the narrative, right? Let's put the wokeism out there. Let's brainwash. Yes, those are the words. That's the actual words that Eric Holder used when he said he wanted to give this to your children 25 years ago when he announced this was the plan to change the way that the next generation looks at politics. This is what you're getting. This is the brainwashing of those out there, and it is wokeism is the title that's been hung on it. You don't want to call it brainwashing. You want to call it wokeism. Okay, fine by me. We know what's going on, and they're trying to change. They're trying to change from the bottom up, from the children up, the way that we view our social values versus their conservative versus liberal social values.
Well, right, and when you're attempting to rewrite history and completely ignore history, and that's once again, the thing that they are calling truthism is not truthism. It completely is not. And what it is that it is a narrative. It is a way that you feel, and it even what you call quote unquote your truth is not the truth. It may be your truth. Right. It may be the way you feel, but it doesn't mean that it does not make it the truth. The truth is based on fact and reality, and oh, by the way, not feelings.
Correct. Absolutely right.
But, some of these folks, feelings, nothing more than feelings. On that note, 2A in Israel. This is a big one. So our good friend over there, Stephen Gutowski, yeah, I was right. Stephen Gutowski, I pronounced it right. He wrote a piece over at The Reload. If you don't read that, you gotta get over to The Reload. Israel loosens gun laws after unprecedented terror attack. It will now be easier for Israelis to carry firearms for self-defense in the wake of the worst terror attack in the nation's history. Israeli Minister of National Security Itamar Ben-Gvir announced on Sunday he has ordered officials responsible for issuing gun licenses to broaden its standards as the death toll inflicted by terror groups Hamas grew to over 600. Ben-Gvir said he wants more Israelis to be able to legally arm themselves. Today, I will direct the Firearms Licensing Division to go on an emergency operation in order to allow as many citizens as possible to arm themselves, he posted. According to a Google translation, the plan will take effect within 24 hours. And Mike, I'll just say this. If there was ever a reason why you need a Second Amendment or a place where a Second Amendment is needed, it's hard to believe that Israel is not one of those places. Is not an example of the need and the importance of the Second Amendment.
Yes. So I agree with you. Obviously, I think everybody anywhere should have the right to defend themselves at all times, right? And Israel has never had a Second Amendment, and it's never, Craig. It's never been a giant issue there. And give me a couple moments here to pull this all together for you. Israel's got just under 10 million people in their population, right? Everybody in Israel that's physically capable must serve. It's like they're conscription. They have to serve at least 2 years in the military, in the military or the border forces, something along those lines, in the armed defense of the state of Israel. So there's currently 360,000 reservists, and we know that 300,000 of them have been called up so far, and that number continues to grow. And in Israel, Craig, and you see these pictures all the time. In Israel, if you're a reservist, you have your rifle. You can take your rifle home with you. You carry your rifle. Your by the way, a machine gun, an assault rifle, an actual military weapon of war. None of this single shot sporting rifles like we have here in the United States. They get to take their machine guns home with them, and they carry it with them wherever they go. And they don't carry them concealed, by the way. It's open carry, strapped to you, machine gun. So take into account and do the numbers, Craig. 300,000 people out of 10 million, right? You're talking, one in 15 people that can carry a machine gun. So imagine, Craig, you're at the mall, right? And you've got in America, you 10% of the people that carry a concealed firearm. The bad guy comes in, decides he wants to do things, doesn't see the guys with the concealed firearms, so he takes on the opposing force. Now imagine walking in a mall and seeing teenagers and young adults wearing machine guns. How likely do you think they are to attack? Well, that model just happened to work in Israel. All right, it's just they've been at war since they've been created, so they've always had their people wearing the machine guns. Has the number of people that are licensed to carry concealed been incredibly small? Yeah, it's something like 40,000 or something ridiculous under that amount. And they only get to carry one firearm and only can possess 50 rounds at a time. That's been very small, but the need hasn't been there because of their military model, and it's not like, oh man, only the military gets to carry. Guess what? Everybody in the country was in the military. So you see how the model's different. I don't want you to think that the Israeli government has said, screw you and gun rights. Just their model kind of covered it a little bit differently. Now, I hate that this situation's come around to allow those that are no longer in the military to continue to carry a firearm. But the threat has always kind of been, mitigated the way they've done their model.
I appreciate that explanation because I didn't know a lot of that. Wow.
So it's I see a lot of people jumping on it. And oh, they've denied the rights of people. Yeah, but Craig, imagine a group of 4 or 5 of us go out. The odds are in Israel, one of us is carrying a machine gun. All right, That kind of keeps the bad guy at bay.
It does. But and that's the thing. What I will tell people is that's all the more reason why we need to respect and be proud of the fact that we have a Second Amendment. We need to protect that Second Amendment and not allow it to be undermined by a bunch of bureaucratic BS and politics.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I will continue.
Again, listen, completely agree in the expansion of the gun rights there in Israel, and it's only going to make them more secure, is what it's going to be.
Right, and and I'll just say, especially we are in spicy times here in the United States as well, and we are as I think naive about the potential threats that we face as the people of some of the people of Israel were about the government. Well, maybe the government, because clearly there were intelligence failures. There were a lot of failures. They are correcting those failures, and they are now doing what they need to in order to address that enemy. But I think it's incumbent upon us. It's funny. I'll tell you. I almost every time I always tell people, look, if you see me, chances are I'm carrying. But I'm even more now. Like, okay, make sure you're prepared. Because, like I said, if it could happen in Israel, who had one of the most secure borders in the world, one definitely has to be a little concerned, considering how unsecure our immigration process and our border is not.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will add this to the story that this Ben Gvir there, the new policy should be in effect here probably by now, within
Yeah.
24 hours. That they're expanding that greatly, and the first thing the government's doing to help those that wish to carry, and again, remember, everybody that's going to get to carry is going to have been a prior military person that has advanced weapons training. Guess what they're giving them? They're not handing out, Glock 43s, Craig. They're handing out 10,000 machine guns for them to carry. Here's more machine guns for you to carry into your daily lives. So
there you go. Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Yep.
All right, moving right along. In California, we have banned Skittles and ignored drugs. I know.
Yep.
I know. I know what you're saying already, Mike. I know what you're thinking already. Let's take a look at the story here real quick. All right, Gavin Newsom approves Skittles ban while rampant crime and drugs take over California cities. This is from my good friend Katie Grimes, a.k.a. Fetching Jen, over at the California Globe. It says, while crime, drug abuse, smash and grab crimes, and homeless vagrants are taking over California's once beautiful cities, Governor Gavin Newsom deemed banning Skittles more important. California politicians just can't get the big things right. Skittles bad, yet Governor Newsom forced lockdowns during COVID, forced masking, testing, and untested and unproven mRNA injections now shown to damage RNA and immune systems. Think about that, as well as the current human defecation, drug abuse, drug use, drug stupors, and dying bodies on California streets. The largest drug-addicted homeless vagrant epidemic in the country is in the Golden State. Even Hollywood took notice. Now, Mike, what she goes on to point out, once again, this is over at the California Globe, is that there was an effort this year to actually decriminalize, for example, the use of psychedelic drugs. There was no effort, by the way, to increase penalties on those who sell fentanyl, who knowingly sell fentanyl, which is killing people by the tens of thousands, if not the hundreds of thousands. But what they're talking about when they talk about the banning of Skittles is the use of the dye that goes into making Skittles, the color dye. Anything that has been known, no matter how small, that has been known to have any link at all to diseases like cancer, well, the coloring in Skittles in huge doses has been known to cause cancer in lab rats. And my attitude is, okay, well then don't give it to lab rats. No Skittles for lab rats.
I think lab rats are just genetically predisposed to cancer. I think that's just the issue. It's just everything causes cancer in lab rats. Craig, I want to go on record right now and say I agree with Governor Newsom on the ban of Skittles. I'm officially on record banning Skittles. Skittles are the scourge of the candy community. They have no place in the candy community. They should be banned from existence. And if I didn't fear some sort of alien infection of them, I'd say put them all in a rocket and shoot them into space.
What do you got against Skittles?
Listen, when you're sitting there and you're like, oh man, look, a loose M&M, and you go pick it up and throw it in your mouth and it's a Skittle. First off, you broke your teeth, right? Because you thought it was delicious chocolate in a candy shell, and no, it's this little rock of sugary, fruity flavor. It's crap. It's horrible. The military puts either M&Ms or Skittles in most of the MREs, right? Now, the M&Ms last about 5 years before they turn to this dusty packet of powder. But the Skittles last forever. And we like the Skittles in our MREs because when you go into military and you're out in the field, you do every day, every couple of days, depending on what kind of unit you're in, you do what's called a sand table. You sketch out on the ground or on a table a model of the battlefield, right? And the Skittles are perfect for using for friendly forces and enemy forces because nobody uses them. And they're bright little colors. You could say the orange ones are the artillery guys, and the red ones are the cav guys, and the green ones are the infantry guys. And you could put them everywhere, and they work perfect. Other than that, Skittles have no place, no desire. Now, Craig, even more so than candy corns. At least with a candy corn, you look at it and you go, oh, that's a candy corn. It's easily identified as a candy corn. Skittle, on the other hand, it's hiding behind the shadow of M&Ms. It's like it's wanting you to think it's an M&M.
Look, Mike.
Yes.
All you got to do is be able to read. One has an S, the other has an M.
On one side. On one side. What do I got to be? A candy inspector now? I gotta pick one up and take a look at it first. Oh man, this one's got a W, Craig. What's this one?
Wow.
That's an upside down.
I never knew you were a Skittle bigot.
Not a Skittle bigot. I'm a Skittle realist, is what I am. I'm a truthism Skittle. I got Skittles truisms of going on over here. Truthisms.
Well, I will just tell you right now, I love me some Skittles.
Well, you and all of California can
That
have
artificial fruity goodness.
Listen, even Judge St. Benitez would say, "No, I'm all right with this law. We can ban
I'm all right with this law.
yeah, we can ban them."
Bad Skittles, bad Skittles.
That's it.
All right, well, hey, folks, look, that brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholster.com, use discount code The Rundown, and get your Hog Holster today. Along the lines of the conversation that we were having about why is it important to have a Second Amendment, to be able to own and possess firearms for self-defense, well, I think this image kind of speaks for itself. What words are there at the top of that, Mike?
Why would anyone ever need an AR-15? And Craig, I think this picture shows why anyone would ever need an M16.
An M16. There you go. Yeah, M16 would probably be a better use. But I don't know. The right AR with, some a nice optic.
Sure. Yeah. Or I could just put a bunch of holes in the canopy and just watch it come down.
There you go. There you go. By the way, for those of you who are just listening to the program, it is a photo or a picture that was taken of the terrorists parasailing into Israel. That's a reason why you need an AR-15. Very, very good reason why you need an AR-15. This next image here, I got to say, is pretty much, I think where a lot of Trump voters are at. And this is an image. It's got Mel Gibson there. There he is. I think that was from movie What Women Want.
Yep.
From years ago. It says me voting for Trump in 2016. And then the second image of once again also of Mel Gibson in Braveheart he is in battle. Because you can see the blood strewn and the war paint on his face. It says, me voting for Trump in 2024.
I was watching some Joe Rogan yesterday, and it had Joe saying, listen, there's the Trump fans are so rabid right now to get him in that all of these other Republicans are starting now to see the light and drop out. In fact, he said, if I was a friend of Ron DeSantis, Captain Florida, I would just go up to him and go, it's not this time. Not this time. You don't want to go up against those fans because they're going to remember you. Next time. So
yeah,
you don't want to be the guy that crossed Trump. So you find an exit strategy.
Right. No, you're right. And it's, the thing is that as you're noticing more and more of the polls are coming out, and the only real argument you have against running against Donald Trump used to be, well, I'm more electable than Donald Trump. But now all the polls are showing that even Donald Trump is beating Harris Biden. And you know the reason why, don't you? Because this right here is an example of the person who will be president should something, or let me clarify, when something happens to Joe Biden. And this is if Kamala Harris were a sign. It would read, notice, the patio is currently closed, or is currently not open because it is closed.
Okay. All right. You got that, everybody? All right. Okay. All right.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
That is Kamala.
Yep.
Not Camelot. Camelot.
Camler.
Scurry. Very scurry. Very scurry. All right, Mike. Well, that's it. That's just about it, except we got one more thing that we got to do, and that is give a quick shout out to our sponsors.
Hitman Industries, hitmanindustries.net. You can get rifle and pistol caliber barrels at any length for your next rifle or pistol AR build. Also now available Glock barrels. Check them out, hitmanindustries.net. California Republican Assembly fighting that good fight behind enemy lines. Now you can take part in California's future today. Make sure you check out the California 6th congressional race while you're there. And of course, if you're going to the field, you want some tactical gear, heading outdoors, heck, want to do it indoors, you get everything but the gun at uscombatgear.com.
So, folks, take a moment. Please visit our sponsors. Let them know that the guys over at The Rundown sent you. And with that, we will once again call it a day. We appreciate you tuning in. We will be back tomorrow on Friday because, thank God, it will be Friday. Y'all take care.
Yep. Just say no to Skittles. Yep. Just say no to Skittles.